Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's YouTube interview where I'm really excited and privileged to be joined by Fenwick Ridley. Hi, Fenwick.
Hello, hello. So, and thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's all right. It's a pleasure. I mean, I came across your work quite a while ago through a mutual friend of ours, and I'm going to read your introduction in a moment to people who won't know about you and your work. The connection originally came through all the cold exposure stuff that I was getting so passionately into, and I tend to be a bit like a dog with a bone when I get into something that makes me feel good. So, your work and where it's placed. Let me introduce you first, Fenwick. So, for those who don't know, Fenwick is a TeamGB ice swimmer. He's an ice swimming fanatic and is known as the GB Ice Viking. You do look a bit like a Viking, I must say. So, Fenwick started out as a long distance open water swimmer, easily covering between 600 and 800 miles a year. And having been a swimmer since he achieved his first mile swim around the tender age of 6 or 7 years, was never out of the local pool. So, this is something that goes back a long way. Fenwick is the proud owner of H2O Trails in Northumberland, England, where he runs swim programs in the stunning environment of Sweethope Lough, which is currently noted to be the coldest swim venue in England during the winter months. He's a swim coach and, over the last few years, has been focusing on achieving a position in the Team GB ice swimming squad. Who knew that there was one, but there is, and we're going to cover that. With whom he recently attended the World Championships in the French Alps, achieving silver and bronze medals. Congratulations on that achievement. There's more, and I'm going to ask about more and come to more as we dive into the conversation. But the thing that really interests me, Fenwick, is, well, one, we share this common interest of cold exposure and ice. But as I said, I didn't know there was a Team G ice swimming. So for people watching this who are new to you and your work, describe it. What does it look like when you go about your business in the H2O trails?
Yeah, so I mean, now I'm like just hugely thankful that I've got a job where I'm working outdoors and I'm full time at the lake, and it's absolutely stunning. And every time I arrive at work, I'm surrounded by nature. Doesn't matter what sort of day it is. I've got the body of water, we've got the trees, the birds, and everything. And just being there is like massively important itself. But to be, I think you go back to like this Japanese sort of term, ikigai, and that is, I've definitely found my ikigai where it's I'm doing something I love, but I'm also it's part of my full-time job as well. So it's quite a special sort of position in my life where I'm quite content and doing something I love, but also making a living out of it.
Mm.
But I get to help a lot of people. So not only am I doing something I love, but I'm actually getting a kick out of supporting other people's journeys. And yeah, H2O Trails is lovely nestled right at the top of Northumberland, which is it's quite high up. It's about 240 meters up, and it's only about 12 foot deep. So you can imagine it being so shallow and high up. It's quite dramatic in its temperature ranges.
Mm.
So we're quite lucky on that because in the summer, see right now it's sitting at like 19, 20 degrees, and then in the winter,
The water temperature.
water temperature, yeah,
Oh.
and then so like November just last year, we hit well, we basically froze over. We had that lovely amount of cold winter weather come in quite early on, and the lake froze over really fast.
Mm.
We were so lucky because it is quite dramatic, and but we're very shallow as well. So the entry, lovely sand entry for beginners. Oh, it's just yeah, can't get any better.
Mm.
But I also in the winter I teach people about the ice, and I take groups out, teach them about cutting holes in the ice, help them learn about how to approach it, and also give people experiences where I'll cut a big channel in the ice, and I'll take them out and let them go and enjoy and have a bit of a play around in what we call the ice experience. So it's quite a unique sort of setting and setup that we've got. And like I say, I feel lucky every single time I'm at work.
Yeah. I love that. I love that ikigai because I feel that I am blessed to be doing the same, to be honest, Fenwick, with my breath work. And as I hear you talk, a couple of things come up to me, which is one, I'm really fascinated by like who comes to you. And obviously then you talk about, we cut a channel in the ice and the ice is frozen over. Like, is it safe? How do
Yeah.
you
So
make it safe?
yeah. So the thing is about like with I mean, our country, we do get ice, and it does in quite a few places up north as well. Especially, we freeze over, and it is really really dangerous. It's not safe to go and do it by yourself and think that it's all right to watch. I mean, the biggest cringe and the hardest thing to watch, especially when COVID came through, is people started taking to the cold and thinking that they're now a cold water swimmer, and people who have got no habituation, adaptation in their body, and they go straight in and think it's okay just to jump in the cold water. The ice itself is incredibly dangerous because, well, it's sharp. It's like glass. It can cut you like really like. I mean, I come out with quite a few cuts, and I'm very careful. But the whole point of pointing out the whole COVID thing was like seeing people walking onto the ice fully clothed with no knowledge at all and thinking it's okay. And yeah, that's not okay. It's super dangerous. So what I tend to do is I teach them about how to look at the ice, how to gauge it, and that it's not just about looking at it and putting their foot on it, because that's not how you check the thickness of it. But it's all about looking at the weather previous and understanding that body of water, where all the shallow points are. But yeah, it's a big conversation when it comes down to talking about how to cut a hole in the ice and go on. See, my lake, I mean, and just to point out, the lake that's behind us in the picture, that's not my lake. But I'll come back to what this one is. But in my lake, we do have, when it's frozen over, I'll walk out and cut a hole right in the middle of it, and get into it. That's probably the most beyond like super dangerous thing to do. It's not you do need to know what you're doing and how to read the ice before you start doing things like that. But yeah, it's.
Well, that's your business and your training, isn't it? So what I'm hearing is that you know how to not just read the ice, but that environment. I love that you talked about knowing the environment, knowing the lake, knowing where the shallow water was. So if you know the environment when it's not frozen, are you much more equipped then to understand it when it is frozen?
Yeah. Majority of the time when people are doing like channels and ice holes and stuff like that, they should be doing it in the places that they've already been before. And and that that you can stand in those points. So if you do make that mistake of going going through the ice and needing to come back out quickly, and also not scrambling up muddy banks. And now I must say I have seen this right in front of my eyes, and I hope you don't mind me giving this scenario, but this is the kind of thing that I'm faced with. Is I coached a few people one winter, and a couple of people out of the groups went off and decided it was okay to cut a channel in moving water, and basically scramble down a muddy bank, cut a channel, and go into the center of the river where it wasn't frozen and swim up. Well, all that's going to happen there is the channel that they originally cut it's going to close up. They're going to come back cold and numb, and as well as having to get back onto the side, and still got to get a muddy bank. But we were lucky enough to actually get out, and I give them a little bit of a lecture when they came back up, and just give them a little bit of a, like, you know, head on their shoulders to approach the ice a bit differently next time. But this is what we're kind of faced with. Like, I mean, this is why I love what I do, because I like to educate and help people understand, and just give them, you know, that good head on their shoulders. But yeah, unfortunately, with the rise of social media and stuff, like, you know, people looking for likes and videos and stuff just to get that, it's probably one of the hardest things to watch in this sort of profession.
Yeah, I really understand that because, you know, I've also seen people doing conscious connected breath work in bathwater, where they're doing really dynamic, basically hyperventilation practices in a bath, and they're breathwork trainers. And then I'm like, I've sent discreet messages privately, you know, in your position as an influencer, do you think that's a good idea? And then I've got blocked and things like that because people don't want to hear the kind of, just
No,
like, I would have concerns. And as you said there, there's a massive rise in ice baths, cold exposure, cutting holes in frozen lakes and things. Have you seen a lot of that in your work, and have you seen a big
mm,
change?
yeah, I mean, it was niche. Like, it was only a few years ago that what I was doing was quite niche, and now, like, yeah, it's all very mainstream, and like people, I'm seeing the most unlikely people. Who, in fact, people who originally said to me that, oh no, I wouldn't do that, but now they're in doing, like, following a gym guru, and they've got themselves an inflatable ice bath at home. I'm like, it's like, but like, again, it's like following trend, and also this whole sort of influencer sort of rise is, it's mental. It is totally crackers, but at the same time, it's it is still quite beautiful in a sense, because we are starting to get a little bit more connected
Yeah.
in ways that we should be. So fair play, but it is actually like, technology is the vessel, but like, you know, it is quite it's quite nice that I do get a lot of people asking me to help them go through getting a barrel for at home, or, you know, things like that. But my God, I will have to say, like, there's a few videos up there that I've watched people going into the ice baths and just doing it all wrong, like all wrong, and it is hard to watch. But I think we've talked about this before, where, you know, you know, we can teach our crowd, we can educate our crowd, and hope that we help them follow a good education and safety to pass on. You know, so that's what we can hope for. But yeah, the best way to get in touch with, like, and like what you're doing with the breath work, and with me, with my coaching, is to seek out a professional and get proper training, and then go on with your journey. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of people are forgetting these days. We're kind of seeing stuff and going, oh, I'm going to go off and try it. You wouldn't jump on a ski slope and just and have a go at skiing all by yourself with no guidance.
Well,
Most
some people
likely,
might.
most people now these days would go on their phone and Google how to ski, and then watch a video on YouTube of how to do it. And then other percentages, they would actually seek out and go, oh, where's the nearest instructor? I want a lesson. You know, there is actually just a small percentage of people who will just wing it. But yeah, so, you know, we're in this game of, like, you know, educating people and making sure that they're doing it right. And you know, this whole scene of jumping into ice baths at home, it is brilliant that people are using the cold as a tool to help with mental release, and also training, but more as well, because the benefits list is quite big. I mean, there's a lot that we can get out of it, but there's also a lot that we don't know. We're only in through cold exposure sort of science. We're only so far through a percentage. I mean, we're not even at 20% really of knowledge. But and I think this next sort of decade, we're going to start having. It's going to be. No one can tell you what it's going to be like. But one thing for sure, I think we'll definitely be having the Winter Olympics, having ice swimming in. I'm fairly sure that's going to be happening. But yeah, I think it'll be a normal thing for people to be buying a house that has an ice bath attached to it.
Yay. There's a couple of before we go on to that kind of competitive ice swimming that I'm sure people will be very interested in that you do. You know, I kind of want to know the man as well, and I'm hearing you talk about the joy of being in nature. I'm hearing you when you said about connection technology on the one hand being good because it provides connection for people, which is how it should be. So I'm getting a sense of who you are. But you also just mentioned something there about, you know, that you've seen this rise in people getting ice baths at home. I've got two now, thanks to my friend who supplied me with them. And I make sure that I'm talking about breathing regulation in safe and good ways, even on my own reels and things. But can you give some examples of things that you've seen that you would consider not great practice?
Yeah. So there's like it's a big question, that one.
I know.
But I think one of the things that I've noticed that I find quite hard to watch is people going through what they think is a good breathing practice to enter the cold. And I have just recently watched two or three well-known, especially one very well-known person, going into an ice bath and literally nearly hyperventilating. Like the way they are breathing is just normal. It's just not normal.
Yeah.
When I teach, we talk about normal state entry. So we don't warm up before we go in, and normal breathing.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to entering the water, it's not deep, it's not fast, it is just normal controlled breathing. Because ideally what we need to be doing is breathing in the first place. We don't need to breathe deep or fast, it is just normal. And pushing our body to be able to adjust by increasing that isn't going to help at all. It's not relaxed. And we're basically, what you're looking at is you're going to war with the breathing, but you're looking at a change in blood pressure. And the thing is about these people who are encouraging to go into breathing techniques, which mostly is that fast and deep breathing. They all copy. They all think they take it as gospel, and I think that's the scary part about it. And you know, these are well-known people, so yeah, those things I'm not too keen on. And I think the other parts are about like the length of time those people are staying in the water. When they're in the water for, let's say, under 10 degrees, if they're in that water for over 10 minutes, most people would cool towards the core from 8 to 10 minutes plus. And you're looking at deep body cooling there. So it's went from the skin, the fat tissue, to the muscle, and then you're getting into deep body cooling. And from around about that sort of temperature and down, you get everybody cools at the same rate, but everybody will get towards that deep body cooling. And when they come out of the barrel or ice bath, the body has to rewarm. But the thing is, though, what people are not understanding is the fact that when they get out of that barrel or the bath, they're not warming up straight away. The body continues to cool because it's all through conduction. So the coldest point of their dip is actually when they're when they're out and they've dried themselves and they've started putting something on them, and then the shiver response comes in. And this is the part that needs to be educated. It's the fact that if you're coming out of the water and you've been in there long enough but you've cooled yourself towards the core, then you shouldn't be running around the place trying to warm up, because it's not gonna warm you up. It's not gonna warm up the core. But what is happening is, because the body's continued to drop in temperature, you can actually accelerate yourself into a mild hypothermic state quite easily if you start jumping around the place and trying to warm up externally. So it's probably one of the biggest cringe points of people when I see them experiencing the cold and being in there for quite some time, is that they are quite cold, they've experienced that deep body cooling and not managing themselves properly on exit. So
let me just pause you there, Fenwick, because that's a really big thing that I get asked a lot about. So is the answer don't stay in the water as long if it's under 10 degrees, or is it warm up differently and come back to a normal core temperature in a different way?
Yes, I mean, it comes down to a step-by-step process. It's the same as when we go through the period of like learning the cold showers and that cold stimulus at home. We start by cooling the surrounding body of like arms and legs, and we build up that tolerance. And really what you're doing is you're building up the mindset of being able to cope with it. But when it comes down to that sort of that hydrostatic response of being in a bath, it is a different type of cooling. You are going to cool differently in that bath environment. So yeah, going on to your question is really try to. So instead of going into like the coaching this, when we tell people to go and have the cold baths, we say to them, don't try and aim to look at time in it. You're just aiming for the stimulus first. So you're just getting that feeling of controlling your breathing and managing that stimulation around the body. Being in there for a couple of minutes is perfect. In fact, you get the same metabolic response in the body from just being in a couple of minutes, and what you do is 5 to 10 minutes. So that push of the body staying in longer means nothing really for a beginner. In fact, it's actually interrupting the body's natural process of habituation adaptation. In fact, the body honors the shorter points and building process nice and slowly, rather than going, right, I'm going to do it for 5 to 10 minutes and I'm going to get really good at this. No, it doesn't. It kind of doesn't work like that. Your body responds better to a step-by-step process of building of that tolerance, that habituation adaptation sort of train. So yeah, the answer is really, when it comes down to getting used to the cold, is baby steps. Start up the top of the ladder. Start by 12 degrees or 15 degrees in that sort of temperature range. Be in there for, it could be 30 seconds to a minute and a half or whichever. But just take your time and actually being in there and focus on the mindset sort of side first. The body will manage itself. There's no buttons to press. Your body's fantastic in the way of responding to temperature, altitude, anything. It is phenomenal the way our bodies respond. But the thing that we have to build mostly is that building that mindset and that the understanding, being calm and being relaxed with that response and that stimulus. So yeah, the answer to that is baby steps, nice smaller amounts and dosages of temperature, climbing down the temperature ladder nice and easy.
I like that visual of climbing down the temperature ladder, and I'm really glad you've just confirmed, because my friend is currently over in Mount Shasta and there's a creek there and it's very cold, and she said, "Oh, how long do I stay in?" And I got in and it was really, I said, "You only need to do like a minute and a half, and you're getting the same benefit." So I'm glad I'm giving good advice. But the other
Yeah,
part
no,
of that is,
totally.
yeah, what happens, you mentioned that if somebody's got too cold, that you see people rushing around trying to get warm up. If they have stayed in too long, and if they've got that, that the body is continuing with its chill process, how should they be bringing themselves out of that?
Yeah, so I mean, the downside of actually experimenting with this big change in the body is that we're surrounded by depletion. So depletion is like hydration, sleep, stress, fuel. All these different things contribute to the time frame of being in that hydrostatic response. So you you'll find that some people will be able to stay in for a shorter amount of time, because they've stayed up for a couple of nights, or they've been on coffee for a lot, or had loads of stress going on. And yeah, sorry, I'm just getting distracted here. 2 seconds. There's just tell me again what that question was again.
Just about the ways that they can really kind of, like, if they have got too cold, how they can bring themselves back up
Yeah,
to a good temperature in a safe way.
yes. So that whole rewarming part can it can be quite difficult for some when it comes down to that depletion part. So
Yeah.
if someone is like quite depleted, and you might find that rewarming takes a little bit longer. But ideally, the process of actually managing ourselves is drying the skin and drying the hands first. So that would be your first point, because we need to dry our hands to then manage the rest of our body. But drying our body, and it's all about pat drying yourself and not rubbing yourself with a bath towel, but pat dry yourself and get yourself wrapped up and cocooning.
Mm,
So it's all about cocooning and actually getting into a couple of layers, a onesie.
mm,
Great excuse to get yourself a onesie, because it's quick and easy, but it's having really baggy layers, so easy to get on layers.
mm.
And getting all those layers on and getting some food in, chocolate brownies, some sugars, because really what you're dealing with is glycogen supercompensation. And this is where our body is. We've went through a burning period where we've burnt a lot of energy, and actually our body's just about to warm back up. So it's going to continue back into a burn. And even more so when it comes down to this shiver response,
Mm.
because the shiver response comes in, and some people might be a full fit seizure sort of style of shivers, and it's normal. It's not. It's our body's response to generating heat, and having a little bit of food. So sugary. This is why outdoor swimmers love cake, because it's so versatile and great.
Is
But
that really
having a bit,
why?
and having some food, well, it's basically, we're generating glycogen. Glycogen's like a delivery system to the muscles for that shiver response.
Mm,
And it's but it's also in what I was saying just before about depletion, as about in preparation. Sometimes we don't even realize, and the hidden depletion levels are: one, hydration. We are terrible, terrible at hydration. I mean, really bad. But it's one of those depletion levels that acts like a ghost, really, because we
mm,
don't think about it enough, and it's not ingrained. And we don't realize how depleted we are in hydration. I'll come back to hydration in a moment. And the other one is stress.
mm,
We don't really realize how stressed we really are, and that can be one of the biggest ones as well. And that could be emotional stress. It could be going through a really hard time with something, with family or friends. That is basically is looked at as energy draining. So when I'm saying depletion, I'm basically describing energy.
Yeah.
And we're using energy to go into that bath, and we're using energy to come out and rewarm. So it's ideal that you think about that sort of that level that we have to look at when we come out the bath and start warming ourselves up. And also a warm drink. And when I say a warm drink, I don't mean hot water. We're talking about something that, hot chocolate would be great, because well, we're looking at sugars again, but the heat is acting as a delivery system. Hot water is not going to warm up the core, because we're made up of quite a bit of water, so it's a bit of a drop in the ocean. It's what's in the drink that's going to help you. And my go-to things are a chai tea with a bit of honey in. Oh yeah, man. Those are the tickets. But the spices are really good for helping with that rewarming as well. Some people like chili chocolate. I can't do that. I've tried. But but the rewarming process is probably one of the biggest things that we make a big issue about, a big talk about, is when it comes down to rewarming. And there is a description of this whole drop in temperature, and I don't quite like it, because it doesn't really describe it really that well, and people call it the after drop.
Yeah.
And it is, it basically, after drop is basically as your body, when you come out of the tank, bath, or whichever, your body then continues to drop in temperature. That's basically what after drop is. And so that, in short, when it comes to that, the management process of it is get dry, wrap up, and get the layers on, and pat dry. Yeah, and I think just to tell you for why it is to pat dry, it's more to do with the fact that you've cooled the skin, and the skin becomes a little bit more delicate. So when it comes down to a hard bath towel, what you're doing is you're not being very nice to your skin cells. So you're rubbing yourself with a hard bath towel to get dried, when really what can actually come up with later on is a bit of welts and rash sort of skin layer. So yeah, be careful on looking after your skin. Pat drying yourself is a top ticket. But
can I just say that I love that this big Viking is talking about being gentle and caring with yourself. I really appreciate that. I think it's so important, and I think it's important that sometimes, the men who are doing this in particular, you talked about, the amount of time sometimes, and for all of us, ego can get in the way. I want to go in a deep hole. I want to stay in the sea a long time. I want to stay in this cold water because I'm going to show that I'm, I've got the most endurance, and none of it's really about that, is it? And on that note, actually, I'd really love to just ask you a bit about your TeamGB ice swimming, because, as I said, I didn't know that was a kind of recognized kind of sport that you would compete in. And I'm sure people would be fascinated to hear, what happens in an ice swimming competition at that level.
Yeah, so I'm quite proud to say, but I honestly never thought I would end up saying this. If you had asked me this 10 plus years ago about, are you going to be an ice swimmer representing Great Britain? I'm like, what? Are you, what? No, not a chance. Total, absolute. I'm an absolute lunatic on the ice. And when it comes down to, I've found a use for all my natural bioprene, So all that lovely natural bioprene I've got a use of it. And TeamGB, there is a TeamGB for ice swimming, and I'm more affiliated. It's all about ISA. ISA is the International Ice Swimming Association. So I'm more affiliated with ISA. There is another body organization, and that is the International Winter Swimming Association as well. And basically they run events, and there's events all over the place. There's more going on with ISA though, and ISA are making a much bigger stance towards getting ice swimming into the Winter Olympics.
Mm.
So it is getting closer, and there has been some really good headway. So yeah, at the beginning of the year, as you were saying earlier, I managed to get onto the World Championships over in the Alps, and I won silver and bronze. And that was my main swims were a kilometer swim, and of course there was a 500-meter swim that I did quite well in. But I actually, I don't think I was that well for the end of it, for the competition, and I didn't perform as well as what I would have.
Mm.
But when I was, and I think that was like either a cold or something that was coming through, because my performance changed. I then went on to doing Holland, and I got first in all of the races in Holland, won all and got first. And then I did the GB Championships again, and I'm going against the GB team there. I mean, the GB team, they are good. I mean, we've got some good swimmers.
Mm.
And I'll come back to the swimmers of GB. And also, I'd run all my swims first in Austria. So, and on the way up to Austria, I stopped off at many places like Slovenia. This is me walking into Lake Bocking, which is in Slovenia, and it's one of my highlights of swims. It was just unreal. So I was quite lucky this winter season, being picked for TeamGB, racing, going abroad, and I got sponsored and pushed, basically. Managed to raise with sponsors and with basically local crowdfunding, that I managed to get up to about 8 to 9 grand, and it all got spent, like, for all the racing that I did, and I did come away with quite a lot. But yeah, going back to TeamGB, I'm thankful that I've been introduced to such amazing swimmers, and we've got, I think when we look at all the categories and all the competitors from different countries, we had the highest medal count compared to any other country. So GB is absolutely smashing it, and I think
That's
we're
amazing.
just. I think we didn't win the World Championships, unfortunately, but we did come close. And I think this next few years, I think we're gonna make a good stamp. I've got a good feeling. So I'll just take this moment to do a big shout out to the whole lot of TeamGB. You guys are solid as, and I love being part of it. But yeah, it's quite special, because that part of the ice swimming is still quite niche, and it is still and I'm quite proud of being part of it. But there is that world of cold immersion starting to explode, and it's nice to be part of the journey for many people. Yeah.
I have a question relating to that comes up for me as I listen to you, because I imagine that that's about swimming competence, which we described in your bio. You know, you've been swimming for a long time. But like, I don't know how long it takes to swim a kilometer in ice water, and how does that fit with what you were saying about safety earlier in, 10 minutes and getting cold to the core, etc. How long does it take you, and how are you staying safe?
Right. It is a really good one. So this season, I've managed to change a lot of my swimming. I'm trying to get back to some of my faster days. I managed to do a mile. This is in warm water, by the way. I managed to do a mile just under 18 minutes. So it was like 17 minutes and 50, and I did a mile. And that was my fastest mile. And now I can do a mile in pretty much 2 degrees, between 1 and 2 degrees. And I've managed to do a mile in just over 22 minutes.
Wow.
So the time frame is completely different when it comes down to being in the cold. You can't sustain a very fast a fast swim. So you can't actually do like like the same speed in such cold conditions.
So how do you stay
With,
safe?
yeah, so it's all the training that's involved. There's a lot of training involved with the habituation, adaptation, but learning your body's responses to be able to actually sustain that, and learning the responses and going, yeah, not today. There's quite a lot involved with the training. Yeah,
So I really want to stress that for anybody watching who thinks, oh my God, great, I'm going to go and swim a mile in that time because they're listening to you, because you've used the words adaptation and habituation quite a bit. You're also
yeah,
incredibly knowledgeable about water safety because it's part of what you teach, and you're a lifeguard as well, aren't you? So
yeah.
to anybody listening, don't just dive into the water and think that you can swim at 2 degrees for 20 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not what we're talking about here.
No, no. I mean, it does take it takes us quite a long time to be able to build up to that level,
Mm.
and a lot of dedication. I'm lucky because it's my full-time job at being cold, and so it is quite unique. But I've managed to do quite a long swim in my main thing is long distance ice swimming,
Mm.
and I've managed to get right up to 3 kilometers in just under 3 degrees. I haven't been able to get back to that yet,
Mm.
but I would like basically there's a world record set at 5 kilometers at just under 5 degrees. So these guys have got a couple of degrees on me, and that really, the couple of degrees means a lot. I mean, a
Right.
lot. So I'm determined to actually get my first marker is to try and get up to 4 kilometers, just under 5 degrees. But at
But what
you know,
fascinates you the most about wanting to achieve that goal?
at the knowledge of the fact that I know that I can stay in long enough to do it, and the knowledge that I have got the strength, the mental responses, and the knowledge about my body. I know that I can do it. I can
Mm.
definitely do it, and it's there. It's mine. I'm allowed to take it.
Yeah.
So the fact that I know that it's there, I'm fascinated by the fact that I know what I need to do to build towards it. So yeah, there's a big drive in there, and I don't think I'm going to stop until I get it. I don't think I will. Even though that I do spend quite a bit of time playing around with that hypothermic states, quite a lot, that doesn't bother me at all, because I've got a great team that's set up. Um, I'm very safe when I practice, and I've got that lovely body of water, which is really cold in the winter, that supports my training. So yeah, I think I'm just hugely driven to get to those targets, and I know that I'm going to get there. But there's a science that surrounds it, and there's timing of like my mental state, my team, the weather, my hydration,
Mm.
my everything. It's the thing is about like ice swimming and going in the cold. We approach the water with a different body every single swim, and we approach the water with a different head on our shoulders every single swim. And this is what people need to learn and understand, is that every single time you go to the water, it's going to be completely different. And to know when if I'm aiming for quite a high target, it has to be just right. The conditions, the temperature, the weather, like the team, and everything really. My mental state building up to it. If I've got any troubles going on, that's it, game over, because I'll not be able to get into that mindset, that frame of mind where because it is quite. Once you get up past those markers of going a bit further and a bit colder, there is this unfortunate side of an ice swimmer that most ice swimmers don't realise, is the more habituated that we get and the more adapted that we get, the easier it is for us to hit that deep threshold of that hypothermic state. So we have to know exactly when to get out, and we need to make those correct decisions. And it has to be, you can't push it. You can't go overtime, because it can be fatal. You are actually. I think this is one of the things that, like, really, when it comes down to this going into a more mainstream thing, it's still classed as one of the most extreme things to do to the body, is to change that body's state. So it's a big change in the body. But yeah, well, the unfortunate side is that the more habituated that you get, the more adapted you get, the more responsibility you have into reading those signals. So when you do get too cold, you are, at that deep level of, deep body cooling, but you actually get out and you manage yourself, and you don't mess about with your training of, like, have I got the right gear with us? Have I got the team there? Have I got my mate there? Have I got my my certain food that helps me? It does become a big science when it comes down to the ice swimming, the long distance ice swimming. But I mean, there's a part of that you can take away with it to the ice baths as well, like, because we're still looking at that whole cooling. But yeah, I want to involve more breath work into my so I'm looking to I'm basically going to be hooking up with you soon to get some more breathwork lessons off you. So.
Well, fantastic. And I highly recommend Patrick McEwen's work with Oxygen Advantage, especially when it comes to performance and recovery in sports and athleticism. He knows so much. And, that training for me, it was challenging because there's so much science in it, respiratory science, physiology, biomechanics, biochemistry, emotional state. I love that you've brought that in, the ways that we can not listen to the body, be in stress states where there's cortisol and adrenaline firing too much, where we make less good decisions because we've gone offline, we're raising blood pressure, etc., etc. So I'll happily talk to you. I honestly feel like this conversation could go on and on and on. And
Totally.
I'm aware of the time because you've got your lifeguarding duties. So I need to draw it gradually to a close here. So I really want, where can people find you and how can they discover more? Have you got anything coming up that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I think during this season, when it's a bit warmer, you can find me on Instagram doing any river trekking. So I do sea to source up against the flow and rivers. So quite a lot of my playtime in the warmer season is that. But Instagram is the best place to find H2O Trails and me. So there's two accounts. So there's Fenwick Ridley, and then I'm gonna be trying to get back onto my YouTube to upload some more stuff. So yeah, Fenwick Ridley on YouTube is a good place to go. But if you're in the local area, you can get onto if you're near H2O Trails in Northumberland, you can just type in H2O Trails into Google or .co.uk, and you'll find us there, and drop us an email in there. But yeah, Instagram seems to be the place to catch me more in my more activities of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
did have a switch off.
too.
I did have a bit of a switch off mind recently.
Did you get married?
Myself. Well, yeah. So like, my lovely Jenny is now Jenny Ridley, and we got married last a couple of weeks back there. So yeah, happily married now.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to put all of the links where people can find you below this, because it's been absolutely amazing, fascinating, and informative hearing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as I say, I feel like there's so much more, so we'll have to do another one where we kind of
Yeah, sure.
step
I
into
think
more
we'll
about the breath and the home use.
well maybe the next one we do is I'll get into the barrel and we can do it in the yeah.
Live experiential, yes. So
Yeah, man.
thank you so much, Fenwick, for your
No, thank you.
time.
It's been lovely. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.